Welcome back to another episode of Footy with the Boys. Happy New Year. It has been a while, and in this episode, we are going to review the massive amount of results, upsets, and performances we've seen since we last potted. Mike, we have you back, not in a Hawaiian shirt. How are we doing?
I'm good. Traded in my Hawaiian shirt for a Chicago Fire jersey. Felt fitting. Um, but Happy New Year, boys. Hope all is well. Good to be back.
Absolute fire. Love the Chicago Fire here, the local team. Nico, you're not repping the local team, but you're repping Cameron Carter Vickers over there. How are we doing today?
I hella forgot Cameron Carter Vickers.
How could
uh,
you?
Could you?
I'm repping Kieran Tierney back in the days. I'm doing good, man. It's good to be back. I missed the boys. Missed our adoring fans. You know, DMs are flooded with when they're footy with the boys back. So happy to be with the boys again.
Nice. And you will all see if you're watching that we have a guest on our show today. His name is Nick, and he comes from the Tracy family. Nick, how did you hear about the pod, and how are you doing?
About the pod, just they're blowing up on YouTube Shorts, so it came up on my feed and I saw it there. But it's an honor to be on the pod. I'm a big fan, been following since the beginning, so hopefully I can give some good takes and
They won.
counteract some of your guys' bad takes.
Wow.
So we're gonna say
Oh,
nothing about this clear nepotism that's going on. Like what the fuck?
I don't know what you're talking
should
about
I, should
there.
I do the
What
jersey?
what is this guy's credentials aside from being Mike's brother?
He's played the
By
highest
the way,
level of
before we
soccer
dive
out of
in,
anybody on the pod, so that's about as good a credentials as you're gonna get.
this is a Hoja Gladsox jersey, Danish sixth-tier team. Real fans know.
Deep
There
cuts.
is there a reason why the Tracy family has all these obscure kits for some reason? Is that
I
is that like a passage in your family? Just throw out random kits?
I played for Hoja Gladsox. I was in Denmark in the spring and helped them get promoted from the Danish seventh to the Danish sixth tier.
God
So
damn.
I got a jersey in reward.
Holy shit. This guy's a
Wow.
professional.
High level play.
First
This guy
first
is
pro on
a
the pod.
professional footballer here, and we will have his takes on what is going on. But first, we're going to run through the table here because there's been a lot of shifts up and down, mostly down, to be honest. A lot of teams have fallen out of form. Not that many are picking up much of great form. We see Liverpool at the top of the table with Aston Villa right behind them. Where's Arsenal gone? Well, Arsenal's lost two games in a row and a draw before that has dropped them behind Manchester City. They're now sitting in fourth, the Wenger Classic. Then we have Spurs right behind them. West Ham, they actually are the team that has had a good form recently. Brighton making their way up back up to seventh. Manchester United dropping from that sixth position down to eighth with only one win in their last five. But their one win in their last five, not as bad as Newcastle, who have just been getting shit on by everybody, lost to Luton, and have been looking god awful, find themselves in ninth. Chelsea finding their way up to 10th, not words Chelsea fans would have thought they'd be hearing 2 years ago. Wolves finding some form, 3 wins in a row to put themselves in 11th. Same with Bournemouth, finding themselves in 12th with some good form recently, besides the one loss. Fulham, 3 losses, but now capped with a win to put themselves in 13th. Crystal Palace follows them. Nottingham Forest with 2 wins in a row, back up to 15th. Brentford, they have not been good in the box. They
Jesus
are down to
Christ, dude.
16th. 5 losses out of their last five. Not buzzing at all. This winter has been a harsh one for the bees. Everton, not as hot as they were after a 10-point deduction. I say give them another 10-point deduction, and we will be rising up the table again. But Luton got some surprise wins once again over a shit Newcastle team, and then Sheffield. So two shit teams that they win against. Then we have Burnley, and then lowly Sheffield United. They have been relegated after losing to Luton. There's no shot. of any redemption for them. But that is our rundown of the table. And now we're going to get into a segment where we are going to focus on different teams that have had a very interesting or intriguing first half of the season. And Mike, we're going to start with you with a team we can see here on the table, with the Everton Toffees. Run us through your first half of the season focus on the boys from the Merseyside.
It's been an eventful season, to say the least, for the Everton fans, for the Toffees. Lots of controversy, bits of form, some slumps. Started out the season pretty lackluster, not finding wins, not scoring goals, not sure what our best 11 is. And then we found it. We found a strong lineup that works for us. Not a whole lot of changes going in and out of the squad. Dominic Calvert-Lewin back from injury, holding down that striker position. Decore finding himself playing the 10, which a little bit of surprise. We saw it last year, but he's been an outstanding player for us. A lot of goals, other contributions in the attack, and an all-around workhorse. Dwight McNeil and Jack Harrison, also great additions to the team, providing a lot from the wit, especially Dwight McNeil in recent games. And then the story of the season, not just for Everton, but what I think the league as a whole, the 10-point deduction, crazy, absolute fraudulence, incompetence. I don't know. We still have an appeal out there. We could get the 10 points back. I'm not holding on to that. It's unlikely that it will happen, but, who knows? Then, we win some games after that, find a little bit of form. We are angry, we're fighting, and then kind of a snap back to reality is what has happened since then. We are just not as strong a squad as a number of these teams in the league. But I have a few questions for you boys.
Do ask.
Without the 10-point deduction, say we have those 10 points, say we're at 26 points. You think that's where we'd be? You think we get the results? You think we fight, we play as well as we had without that fire in our belly? I'll start with you, Nick.
Tracy.
Okay. Are you going to be Nico and I'll be Nick?
Yes.
Make it easy. Okay. I'm going to say that definitely gave him a little fire in the belly, gave him a reason to come out and start winning games, because they started the season very poor even before that 10-point deduction. And they definitely found some form there, a little bit less recently. So I think they do need to find another reason or little spark to start winning more games. Like you said, they're not the best team to begin with, and they're going to struggle against some of these higher tier Premier League teams. But I think it has helped them go on a little streak of wins and hopefully get some more momentum going throughout the rest of the season.
Jared, do you agree with that? Or is he full of shit? Or are you just a good team to begin with?
If you look at where 26 points puts them, that's right in between Wolves and Bournemouth, a bit above Fulham, a bit above Crystal Palace, but still below a Chelsea Newcastle. I think that's a pretty good spot for where Everton is at the moment. I think when Everton's at their best, obviously, as we've shown, we can beat some of those teams that are above that mark. But I think realistically, if you take those 10 points back, I think the same results happen. I think this team can pull out results. They've proven that. And I think they are right around that 26-point mark. I think the results would be just about the same. They'd be at that same spot in the table. It seems to fit, at least in my opinion there.
Great. And then I'll have another question for the other Nick, the host, Nick Valderrama, the mainstay. We seem to found a style of football that seems to work for us. Sean Dyche has implemented his low possession, hit on the counter, defend aggressively, and fired up the wings with not an inverted winger. We play with traditional wingers, firing in a lot of crosses, and it works, or it had worked. Is that style too old school to get a lot of results, or is it something that we could rely on that, if it goes well, puts us comfortably in the mid-table?
Dude, I think all styles can kind of come and go. I don't think the system inherently isn't what's wrong with the team because if you tried to play a possession based, some like more progressive football, honestly, I think it'd look a lot like how Bournemouth looked early in the season of like trying a system that isn't really made for them. So I don't think the system's the problem. I think you nailed it earlier. This squad just does not have enough talent. I mean, results aside, let's say those 10 points don't come. There's 26 points. That puts you 12th, 11th, whatever it may be. Um, Even looking at the teams around you, I don't think there's enough quality in that Everton team to really be feeling comfortable that you're better than a Wolves team that just shit on you 3-0, or feeling comfortable that you have more game changers in a Nottingham Forest, who Morgan White is a baller, and Anthony Langa can be a game changer, and Ibrahim Sangare was a big money transfer. So it's really a lack of quality. There's some rumors of like some big money takeovers coming in soon. If that happens and we get some real investment over at Goodison, I think that Sean Dyche is the right guy for this team. He did well with Burnley for a while. As you get a more quality, I would assume that it would only get better. It's just fucking hard to get some of those players to buy in and play that kind of style, which to Everton's credit and to Sean Dyche's credit, they've been buying in. Like every game has looked the same, regardless of the goals or the results. So they're gonna keep fighting. I don't know why the two Tracy brothers said fire in their belly like 3 times. That makes me deeply uncomfortable. Pretty white thing to do. But aside from
It's
that,
the Tracy
I
traditional
think
slogan, man.
that's Nick Tracy on the crest. It says "fire in the belly" of the Tracy household.
Heck yeah.
Um, but I think mostly it comes down to a talent deficit. They are still one of my. They're like a pretty fun watch, honestly. So fun chaos at moments. I feel good that they belong in that pack that they're in. Even though they're only a point off of the bottom 3 right now, I don't really think there's much danger of relegation.
I think you're right with that. The team's gone behind the manager. They've stuck together. There definitely is the camaraderie. I'll send it over to Nick Tracy to talk about Man U. But one last question. Anybody can take it if they have an opinion. If we're going to make a marquee signing, a big money signing, or even a mid money signing, because let's be realistic here, Everton's not splashing the bank here. What position or where in the field would you look to make the biggest improvement?
The box.
Giovanni Reina.
I fucking knew he was gonna say Gino.
I was gonna say he needs out of Dortmund. We need an actual number 10 as well as Decore's been in it as a a stand-in. Giovanni Reina gets to the Premier League.
I think you're right. It's definitely a number 10. It's not Gio. But take maybe a right back, honestly. Ashley Young's so goddamn old. Like, I don't know. He's still hanging in there. Nathan Patterson's not convincing, so I wouldn't hate a right back either.
Yeah, I agree. Right back or Cam, I would say.
Great.
Nick Tracy, you want to take it away on the enigma that is Manchester United?
Our first Man U
can.
fan on the pod. Goddamn.
Hate to see it.
Hopefully our only. Yeah.
You know, I love United. I can't say I've loved watching them this season. It's not even ups and downs this season. It's been downs and more downs for the most part. United's got results against teams they should get results against, some bottom tier teams, and that's to contribute to the 31 points they have. But I wouldn't be able to say they have a convincing result the entire season. They haven't beat a big team this year. Their biggest win, I would say, is against Chelsea, who they beat 2-1, and Chelsea's in 10th place in the Prem. So I don't know if this season you can call that a convincing win. So I think Man United in January needs to look to make some big changes. Obviously, as a team, United have had very bad injury problems the entire season, and that's obviously not helped. But just looking at the play style, even when we had some healthy players, Mason Mount has been out for a long time, but he didn't sell me when he was starting. Casemiro's been out. I think he could help a lot in one of Man United's main problems right now, which it looks like we don't have a defensive midfield at all. You can put someone at the 6, but it's always just turnovers and people run right through and makes our defense look really bad, which is definitely partially a problem, but I think our defense looks worse than usual considering how bad the defensive midfield is. So I would say overall, some big changes need to come in January, whether it's selling people, making rotations in the lineup, or buying a big new player. I like what Ten Hag's done recently, especially with bringing in some of these young players. If anything, they bring energy to the team, which sometimes Man United looks like they don't even want to win a game. I understand you can be outclassed, you can be outplayed, but a lot of the times, some of the big name players who should be bringing that energy to United don't look like they want to be out there. And some of these younger players, like Hannibal or Kobe Minu, when they come into the team, they just bring that energy and that mindset that's needed.
Nick, how much of that do you think? Because I don't know if you guys saw the clip, but Morgan Gibbs White from Nottingham Forest just beat Man U 2-1. And Morgan Gibbs White was giving
Yeah,
like a pep talk at halftime. He's like, "Look at those fuckers. They don't even want to be here." And the camera cuts to Ericsson, and he just looks so fucking over it. It
yeah.
was like they're 100% right. So how much of that do you think is the squad's fault? Some of these veteran players just not giving a shit. I've always considered Ericsson a professional. And how much of that do you put on the ball genius, Eric Ten Hag, not being able to get some of his bigger players to buy in?
I definitely think it's a little bit of both. As a professional player, you should always have that passion and the love for the team you're playing for. Especially Man
You would
United. I
know.
mean,
It's
a lot of the
seventh
people who come
division.
to yeah play for the badge, but especially a club like Man United, like with so much heritage, a lot of the people when they come to Man United, like it's been my dream to play for Man United. Or there's so many players out there that would love to play for a club with that much heritage and success in the past that you would think players would have some fire and some intensity to play for a team like this, especially being in a bad period. You don't want to be on the team that's one of the worst in Man United's history. But also, yeah, it's clear Ten Hag is not a good manager of people. Um,
Facts.
Watching him at Ajax, he might have some good tactical ideas of how to play the game, but he's had so many problems with individuals. Like the Sancho situation, it doesn't seem like he handled very well. Whether Sancho had the right mentality or not, making it public like that, I don't think helps the rest of the team at all. So hopefully Ten Hag can change it around and keep the locker room. But if not, then maybe some changes in manager have to happen as well.
Mike, switching to bigger Tracy. Mike, I think that your brother kind of nailed it. He's talking about how like he's not a good people manager. We've talked about it all season. I'm sure he's gotten sick of listening to our podcast, honestly. But he also some of his big money signings. We look at Anthony's face there. We look at some of the other investments he's made in the squad. Hoyland not really hitting form despite the profile being solid. Um, do you think that it's not just a a people person thing, but also being able to identify certain tactics or being able to identify big money signings? How big is the problem when it comes to the head man?
It's huge. You could see it here on Palmer's screen, the Gary Neville analysis about the signings, and he said it really well. And I really agree with him. He thinks that Ten Hag has too much influence on the signings that are being made, that the scouts are really not being listened to. The general management does not have as much influence as would be normal in a big club like Manchester United, and that Ten Hag is really getting his way. And that was most evident with the Antony signing, where it came out that the scouts valued him around high 20s to the 40 million mark, and then Man U goes and buys him for about $90 million, which is at least double. And then it really hasn't paid off at all. He's got no sort of goal contribution, assist contribution. He looks lost out there on the wing. Another one is Hoyland, where that's a huge money signing as well, closer to the mark on an actual valuation. But how much is that on Ten Hag pushing the bullet rather than the scouts? So yeah, that if that's the case, if that is true, if Gary Neville is telling the truth here, which he probably has more knowledge on the backings of Man U than a lot of people, then yeah, that's a huge issue. Maybe you don't need to change the manager, but maybe you need to change how signings are done, who you're listening to, and how much impact the scouts have on the team.
Maybe we should get him to be a guest next.
I feel like the issue for Eric Ten Hag is he's great at Ajax for the reason of some of his signings and that it's Ajax, that you're playing in the Eredivisie where defense is not that strong, and when you're at Ajax, you have the better players. But additionally, the signings that he's made are very Ajax-like. It's not players that you expect Manchester United. It used to be an Angel Di Maria came in, and if he flopped, he flopped. It's a top player. If he flops, you know what? They flopped on one of the biggest signings. Memphis Depay was a huge player. Redmond Falcao. Those players flopping, I'm okay with because they were at the top of the game. They were huge signings because they were the top at their position. What's going on now is that he's signing for Manchester United money because people know they can get the money out of Manchester United. Players that Ajax would get that they can, oh, this is a really good young player. They have a lot of potential. They can develop. And you see it a bit with Chelsea as well, where they're getting young players that they can develop. But that's not a Chelsea. That's not a Manchester United. That is a Dortmund, an Ajax. That's a Fulham. That's a smaller level team that is going to get players that you bet on their potential rather than a top team in Europe that should be competing for European competitions, not competing for top 10. I think that's the biggest issue. Nick, as in Nick Tracy, do you see that as the biggest issue for Ten Hag, or you think just tactically wise he's gone adrift here?
Yeah, I don't think that Eric Ten Hag doesn't have the tactics to make a successful team in the Premier League. I think you saw at the end of last season, United found some form. He had the players he wanted at that point in time, and United made a run to challenge for second in the Premier League. They came third in the Premier League. They won the League Cup. It's not a great season, but it's a solid season qualifying for the Champions League and winning a trophy. Um, I do definitely agree that the way they're signing players has to change. Man United can't sign all prospects. They need proven players that are ready to take on the Prem and challenge for the Premier League or the FA Cup or any competition they're in. It's clear this season that they have a lot of people that aren't ready for that stage, and you can't really give them 2 years to develop if it's going to put Man United in such a bad position right now. But I also don't think it's just Ten Hag when it comes to like the tactics and signing, because you look back, when's the last time Man United made a truly good big money move for a player? It's not just Ten Hag. It's been since Ferguson. I don't like they haven't
Bruno Fernandes.
spent their money well. Okay, that is true. Bruno Fernandes for 60 million. That's a great signing. But outside of that, they signed Ronaldo, which worked for a season, and then whether it
Varane?
was due to manage, I don't.
I don't think he's been
Varane, so United, he hasn't been wildly successful, and United just declined to extend his contract for another year, so
But
he
is
can
that a
leave on
Ten
a
Hag
free this
thing or a
summer.
Varane thing?
I don't know what led to that, but you look at how much he was signed for, and if he leaves this summer, you look back at his Man United career, and I would say you have to say it's everything but a success, especially for that caliber of player.
For sure. So you mentioned earlier, Nick, last thing here, we'll wrap up on menu, but you said maybe start time, like at some point to look for new manager. How long of a leash are you giving the ball genius?
I'm slightly more optimistic for Man United for the rest of this season. People are going to be coming back from injury, and this time last year is when they really found their stride and made a run in the league to come back from it wasn't nearly as bad of a situation as they're in right now, but they were at a poor spot in the league at this time last year. So I think you give them the rest of the season, the January transfer window, see if Man United can find some type of form to fight for a Champions League spot. Um, if not, I don't think a late like third quarter mid-season change is going to do anything to vault them up to a Champions League spot or competing for anything. So I think give them the rest of the season. If they can turn it around and maybe find a Champions League spot or somehow get an FA Cup out of it, I say that's good. But if not, then maybe it's time for him to go.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it may be time for him to go in the summer. But we will move on to a team that is not asking any questions about their manager other than how much can one love their manager. It is Aston Villa as my focus team of the season, a title contender, some might say. They find themselves in second place in the Premier League halfway through the year. And boy, has this team wildly exceeded expectations. they are just a team of people who are balling out this season. You could choose any one of those players to highlight as an extremely outperforming their expectation type player, and you could go through like about their entire 11. Uh, for that, Unai Emery has them playing amazing. Last season, Emery came in with them in I wouldn't say a scrap for the relegation, but they were flirting with relegation battle. And he came in, had a good end of the season with them, and this season he has kept that form going. I mean, huge performances by Ollie Watkins. I think he is a top striker this year. Moussa Diaby was great at Leverkusen, has now started to hit his stride in the Premier League. Leon Bailey was a bit dormant for 2 seasons, and now is finding form. And Douglas Luiz in that center defensive mid role has been absolutely insane for them, just controlling games. If you watch Aston Villa play a game, I think he is one that very much so stuck out to me as just a player among the rest. And doing that as a six, as a midfielder, is pretty hard to do. And McGinn just has some bangers in him. But Unai Emery has them absolutely balling. I think you would give Unai Emery the manager of the season so far. Don't think there's much of an argument for anybody else over Unai Emery because he's second
That's
in
what
the
a
league with
shit
a.
take.
Certain German.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Wait, what?
How are you not giving it to Klopp?
What?
Brother, Liverpool has
Did you-
been always the top team, so him being in first by 3 points over Aston Villa, who has a significantly less tiered talent, I would say is a lot more impressive of Unai Emery to be 3 points away from
That
45
that was a
rather than.
complete midfield revamp and what was supposed to be a transitional year for Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp deserves a little bit more credit. I fucking hate him, by the way, but he's
I
done
I
hell of a
give
job.
him plenty of credit. I think he is a very impressive manager, has proven that time and time again. But he still has Mo Salah, Diaz. He still has Virgil van Dijk. He still has Trent Alexander-Arnold. He still has Allison. He has this crazy amount of talent that has been proven talent. Unai Emery came into this team that had a very similar roster and was fighting relegation and has them in second place in the Premier League. That is insanely impressive. But Nick, I'll go to you more on the Aston Villa specific, not comparing to other teams. Who do you think has been the most impressive player of that Aston Villa team this season?
Who are we
Would
talking to?
say
Well, I thought we clarified that it would be Nico and Nick.
yeah. I just wanted to make sure I give it a slight pause. I didn't see Nico move, so I would say it's got to be Douglas Luiz for me. To be honest, I haven't watched a ton of Aston Villa games. I've watched a lot of highlights this year. I think I've maybe watched 2 or 3 full games from them. But in those games I watched, Douglas Luiz, he's just a general in the midfield. He controls the tempo of the game. He's a brick wall defensively, and he can just change games. I mean, he's found some goal scoring this season too, which usually you don't expect from a six. But I think he's just a dynamic player that changes the game every time he's in there, and so I got to give it to him.
Right. And Nico, he has toppled your Arsenal. He has toppled Manchester City. Unai Emery's men are quite the team here. Where do you see them after this first half? We're all the way through the first half. Where do you see them ending up?
Yeah, he was held by Sheffield. What a man. Listen, I think I think they have a lot of talent. I think they have a deeper team than a lot of people give them credit for. Tyrone Mings went down like first game of the season, and people have stepped up. I don't honestly love that defense. I think their fullbacks attack way too much. But that's a different thing. So I mean, he's done well. I don't think they're going to sustain a title challenge. I think they'll be fighting with Spurs for a top four finish. Um, yeah, it's really cool what they've done. They're fun to watch. Their players are enjoyable. We're out here blowing Douglas Luiz, and rightfully so. But his midfield partner Benjamin Kamara has been incredible as well. Kind of given Douglas Luiz a little bit more freedom to roam. John McGinn it's just a fucking block, just running up and down the pitch nonstop. that probably has more technical ability than people give him credit for. So, they're a good team. They're a fun team. I personally hope one of my best friends is a villain himself. I personally hope they finish top 4. Unai Emery leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but they do have some quality players and they've had some very quality results for sure.
Right. And Mike, like I did mention, they have some pretty nice results, some with a lot of goals, some over just top teams. What do you think is their best performance of the season so far?
Oh, they've had a few performances where they score a lot of goals, and then the Arsenal and City game they just scraped by one. But it's got to be the City performance for me. The way they really negated everything City threw at them. City didn't have many, if any, clear chances. Uh, the defense held up all so well, and the stats show it. Look how many shots they hit. I mean, 7 on target, 22 taken. That's unreal against this Manchester City side, who has world-class talent in the midfield and the defense and in goal. So that's got to be the performance of the season so far. And I'd be surprised if they have a better one than that this year.
Yes, it's hard to topple a win against the treble winners. But we move on to a team that is competing with Aston Villa right now for one of those top 4 spots. It is Arsenal, who has been a bit down on their luck as of recently. A draw and 2 losses in their last 3 that has moved them from the top of the table down to 4th place right now. Nick, give us the rundown of Arsenal here. I'm sure it would have been a little different 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, listen, we'll start from the very top. We've had an interesting year. It's kind of been a transition from like that really fun, free-flowing team that we saw last year. So much attacking talent. Teams are kind of parking the bus against us in just about every game. Makes for pretty dominant Arsenal games, but also they're having trouble finding answers to that deep block. There's been some controversial VAR decisions, but that's been the case for every team. So we can't get too hung up about the incompetency. And this last 5 games is where we're at. We were top of the table going into Christmas, with a really impressive win against Brighton, a hard fought draw at Anfield, which I think we could be proud of. And then these last 2 games, the Villa one, we outplayed them. Shit finishing is what it is. The West Ham game, I don't think our finishing was bad. We had 30 fucking shots. It just felt like the ball was never breaking our way. Um, we were definitely the better team there. And then probably 2 of our worst games of the entire year have both come against Fulham. But this last one is undoubtedly the worst one. A very embarrassing defeat. We dropped points against them early in the year. It did not go our way this time around either. And Arteta and the whole team really recognized it after that. So listen, my panic button isn't that high. The 5 point gap is alarming. It makes me feel one like Fulham might have figured something out against Arsenal because again, that's been our 2 worst performances of the year. Arguably, we played pretty poorly against Chelsea as well. But I'm not panicking too much. A lot of our players feel out of form at the moment. Trossard's not playing well. Martinelli's not playing that well. Jesus got straight dropped for that fucking bum Eddie Nketiah, who, by the way, big surprise, didn't do jack shit. So when it comes to Sheffield, you can score a hat trick, but they're not even a team in this league, so who cares? Um, it's one thing or the other with Arsenal. They haven't really gotten out of second gear, so to be, 3rd place at this point in the season, we still have a lot of football left to be played. I'm pretty happy with where we're at. Um, I will say though, we seem like the least likely of those top 3 to win the title at this point. I still think we can do it. I still have faith. I don't think there's really going to be any help coming outside from people returning from injuries. Excited to get Yuri and Timber back, Thomas Partey back, Tomiyasu back, a bunch of different people. Emil Smith Rowe's on his way back right now. He's on the bench the past 2 games. So there are reinforcements coming. I don't think it's from the transfer market. We spent over 200 million. I guess my real questions for you guys are a couple things. There's been a lot of criticism about Arsenal, specifically that front attacking line. Martinelli's out of form. Saka's the steady Eddie with 20 goals and assists in all competitions so far for the first half of the season, which is great numbers. But Jesus dropped for Nketiah, and Nketiah obviously a stinker. Um, is that enough? Do they look to maybe sell players to raise funds and in order to maybe sign a striker? But who really is that striker? Flags, what do you think about the front line for Arsenal at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think Saka and Martinelli are two budding stars. I think Saka, in terms of run of play, needs to step up more as the main star and really constantly have top games where he's getting end results. I think he's an insanely good player that creates a lot of chances and does a lot of the right things, attracts a lot of attention, which I think has somewhat lowered his numbers because teams are focusing so much on him. But I think if he's going to take that next level, I think he needs to step up his game a bit. I think Martinelli as well needs to find a bit of form, but like you said, the main issue is that striker position, and if only they had an American English striker that is now at Monaco to come in and help him out, make some smart runs and finish some goals. But I do think that they're probably going to be ending up investing into a striker, if not in January, certainly in the summer. But Mike, do you feel the same way where it's really just that striker position and people stepping up?
I don't think it's just the striker position that'll help. I hear rumors of Ivan Toney that's been going around since the summer. I'd be kind of surprised if they make what seems like a little bit of an impulse buy because he hasn't played in so long. The money will be crazy, and then you have to, incorporate a player who's really unlike anybody Arsenal has currently into that system. But who knows? Maybe. I think another worrisome thing is the third midfield player. So Rice and Odegaard are going to be your staples. Havertz has been in. Trossard's been in a little bit in that midfield. Party when he's healthy. They look like they're
Jorginho.
missing Granit Xhaka. I mean, it looks clear as day that they're missing a guy like Granit Xhaka who can break up play, do defensive duties, run with people, and then has enough to go forward where he's finding passes, making runs into the box, finding an odd goal. They don't have a player like that right now. They don't have a replacement for what he did for them last season. And I don't know if there's someone currently in the squad who can really step up and do that.
We'll say I think part of the problem there is that Zinchenko's just in the shittiest form of his life at the moment, so that entire left side just looks dead. I do think Havertz has been playing better as of late. So I like him for that third role. Actually, I actually don't hate putting Zinchenko in the midfield for fuck's sake. Like he is not a defender, that's for fucking sure. Um, Nick, I think Flags touched something earlier. He said that it feels like Saka, with the ability he has, needs to step up, and I've heard that criticism a lot. But again, 20 goals and assists is for people saying he's having a bad year. I'll fucking take that bad year for an entire season, honestly, from most players. And for the first half for a guy like Saka is great. But we have, I think maybe our most viral clip revolved around world class players on this pod. Nick, when you look at this Arsenal team and as far as guys who can actually like take control of a game on their own, do you feel like maybe they're lacking in that spot? Because sometimes when I'm watching us against these low blocks, it feels like fuck, like somebody just step the fuck up and make something happen. Do you think this Arsenal team has any world class players? Do they need more talent, more development, or what are your opinions there?
Yeah, I think they have a couple guys right on the edge of world class. I think Declan Rice, with his consistency, is right there, and definitely Saka is right, almost world class as a right winger. But like you said, and like Jared was saying, I think sometimes they just need to take the next step. Like I've heard Saka compared to Salah last season, and if you want to make comparisons like that, I'm not saying you are in particular, but Arsenal fans or people who highly rate Saka, he needs to take that next step to be a truly world class player who's clinical. He definitely shows flashes of it, but not enough if Arsenal want to be a title challenging team to do it in flashes. They have to do it every time and win those difficult games where it's maybe Fulham's parking the bus against them and then somebody just gets a toe poke in the corner and they end up winning, whether it's a shitty win or not. They just need some players to make that leap, I feel like. And I don't think Saka or Rice or even maybe Saliba in flashes are far from that, but they just need more consistency to make that leap to world class.
for sure. Last thing I'll say on Arsenal, we can move on. But I see people calling for Arteta's head. Maybe the stupidest fucking thing I've ever read on the internet. This man, I saw a graphic the other day of comparing Liverpool, Man City's, and Arsenal squad, based on signings of 40 million plus or more. And Liverpool had twice as much, and Man City had 3 times as much. So to be competing with them, our timeline got accelerated with how good of a year we had last year and how fucking bad we choked at the end. But be fucking grateful, because I remember those years with Emery finishing ninth and not doing shit. It's fucking watching Aubameyang and Lacazette dance naked with each other in the locker room. I Be grateful for what we have. Arteta's the guy to steer us the right way.
Yeah, Arteta plus the young combo of Martinelli and Saka stepping up really boosted this team quite a bit. If Arteta does get sacked, you know,
That's it.
Goodison Park could use an assistant for Sean Dyche. I'm sure those two systems would mesh well together. But that will be the end of our focus teams. We are going to move into our stock up, stock down, which will feature Nick Tracy, not Nico, telling us one team that he is going to pick that will be a surprise for the rest of the season based on their form, whether that's good or bad. And then one team that he thinks is going to straight up just disappoint us, let us down. And Nick, the stage is yours. Who is going to be the surprise of the second half of the season here?
Yeah, my stock up is going to be Crystal Palace. You look at their recent form, 5 games, 1 win, doesn't look great. But you look at the games they've actually played. I mean, had a tough stretch of games. They're coming off a solid win against Brentford, which Brentford is a low tier team this season. That's not great. But I mean, they lost to an 89th minute penalty against Chelsea, which that Chelsea team's finding a little bit of form. They tied Brighton, who's a solid team this season. They managed to tie Manchester City, current treble winners, and they lost 2-1 against Liverpool on a red card, 10 men against Liverpool. So they've definitely found some form, and what I'm counting on them to do is rely on those two guys, mostly Olise and Eze, who they showed some brilliance this last game. They won 3-1, 2 goals from Olise, a goal from Eze, and they just got to rely on those guys' creativity to help spark their attack. Those are two incredibly good young players that they have on their team, and I don't think they're going to let them go to the waste the rest of the season. I think maybe they could get a couple more solid January signings just to firm up some more rotation in the squad. And also, I like the role they put Chris Richards in recently. He's playing more of a 6 role instead of center back, and he's looked solid. Like he's putting an extra line of defense in front of Crystal Palace, which they've been solid defensively the whole season, but that's definitely something that could help maybe spark some transition in attack or something like that. So they're going to be my choice for stock up.
I like it. And I like the Chris Richards shout there. I think with how bad their defense was, putting him in, although he is a center back, putting him in that CDM role just puts in another just defender. You can essentially go into a 5-back, but you also still have a midfielder that can get further up the field. And just in their last game, he had a huge slide tackle that deflected out to one of the Crystal Palace players and ended up in a goal. So I think it's a cheeky pick to choose Crystal Palace as the surprise team for the second half, but I don't hate it. Mike, what are you thinking?
Hey, dude, I had a little bit of praise for Crystal Palace earlier this year. Yeah, I fuck with it, dude. It's a good pick. I like those guys that he mentioned, especially in the attack. I'm not as convinced about Chris Richards in the holding midfield. I need to see it a little bit more. He can absolutely do the defensive job, but if he's going to play as a pivot, connect passes, turn defense into attack, that's a little bit up in the air. Hopefully he can do it. That'd be sick to have another option, play CDM if Tyler Adams is not available in the international squad.
I do want to clarify that I don't think Chris Richards is a good 6 in general. I don't think he'd be a good 6 for the U.S. men's national team. I think he is a good 6 for Crystal Palace due to having Eze and Olise, who are such huge dribblers and create their own offense. He does not need to be a distributor. He does not need to pass the ball too much. He just needs to be safe with it, which he very much can do. He's a good passer for a center back, but as a CDM, I don't think that's his best role, but I think with Crystal Palace, it helps them out when they were leaking goals and have such attacking talent. Nick, do you see this the same way as Nick does here? Your twinning name. Do you see Crystal Palace as a good surprise team?
No, that's a shit pick. I don't know why. I don't know why we gave him his own segment. That's a dog water pick. Palace, 14 feels like the peak for them. The world where they're gonna get higher than that. They only have Elise and Eze, and Elise is injured every other game. They're trying to force Eze out wide all of a sudden, which is not really the style of play that he thrives in. He should be down the middle. Um, I like Crystal Palace. I hate what they did to Vieira, but I've actually liked that team for a while. But they are not the correct pick for surprise. If you're asking me, I think Nottingham Forest, the team right below them, is someone that can do a little bit more. New manager Bounce won their most recent game. Nuno has proved to do it with Wolves before in the Prem. And I think he's the right man to get all that talent over at Nottingham Forest. So listen to this, Nick, not that one.
All right. It's an interesting shot there, the Nottingham Forest nod. I think we've already seen Nuno Espirito Santos take his hold over this team and a whole lot of playing out the back, which has not been too helpful for Matt Turner in the first days of Santos coming in. But they're sticking to that strategy, and we'll see where that ends up for Forest. But now we move into, Nick, your choice for the one team who's going to disappoint in the second half of the season.
Yeah, Nick didn't like my last pick, and he's really not going to like this one. I'm going to choose Arsenal to disappoint the rest of the season. And
That's stupid fuck.
I don't know. By disappoint, I mean, as of a week ago, they were supposed to be title challengers, and I don't think they're going to be close to it. Some of the things that Nick talked about, lack of conversion in goals, they don't have a guy who is going to go out there and win them games. They don't have a striker that's going to score 20 goals in a season, no matter how pretty they are, and win them a game when they really need to win it. They had a couple hard fought games. They won the one in the 96th minute against Luton, but then they just came out and lost back to back games. And if you're going to be a title challenger, you got to find a way, no matter how you're playing against a team, whether they're sitting in the back and playing shitty football, it doesn't matter. You have to find a way to win a game. You have to have a game changer. And I don't think Arsenal has a player that is at that level that is a game changer currently that's going to help them get past fourth spot. I could see them maybe staying in fourth or fifth, but I think that's a disappointment really for the rest of the season with the amount of expectation they had on the great form they started this season. And you look at a team like Aston Villa, I don't think Villa has close the amount of quality overall as Arsenal does, but I think they play a better style and find a way to win games that has them in the current spot they're in compared to where Arsenal's in. And even though it's a 2-point gap, I don't see Arsenal finding a way out of the current spot they're in. And this could change. Maybe a January transfer window, they sign a striker, someone who's clinical, and it could completely turn their season around. But I don't see them getting past the fourth spot this season, and they're just going to be fighting for a Champions League spot, in my opinion.
Nick, go ahead.
Just the most classic Man U fan, and another just the hate that burns in me for this stupid fucking club over in Manchester is just so deep, and it's because of stupid fuckers like this guy who's Aston Villa to go forward and continue on this miraculous form while Arsenal, he's having some short-term memory loss. Find any way to win. Well, I do remember Declan Rice finding a way to beat your shit-ass club at the beginning of the season, and then us getting a third when Gabby Jesus deked the shit out of your defense. But we don't have to bring up old
A win
wounds.
against Man U is not going to win you the league.
Yeah, it's just
A loss
it's
against
sad
Fulham's going to lose it. A loss against Fulham is going to lose you the league.
It's tough when your team's horrible, so I understand trying to take cheap shots. Listen, to be fair, he's not wrong. We do not have that absolute clinical number 9. Jesus is a hell of a player, but he's not a goal scorer, consistent goal scorer. So, he's not wrong there. I do think that Arteta's system doesn't rely heavily on the number 9 being a goal scorer, but as things get more and more condensed, like he said, with deeper blocks, you do have to learn to play against that. So I think part of that is there'll be reinforcements in other areas. Part of that is Zinchenko's giving the ball away every 3 seconds right now. So not as worried. But congratulations to Nick Tracy, who just got officially invited to the end of season podcast. so I can shit on him all over again.
I want to ask you, Nick, right now, where do you see Arsenal finishing the end of the season? Where in the table do you think they'll be?
They'll be top 3. I think they'll be, if they lose it, they won't be more than a game behind the winner. And I think we have I said it earlier, of the top 3, they being Liverpool and Man City, fuck your Aston Villa take. Of the top 3, I think at the moment you'd have to put them third as most likely to win. Man City has proven that they could figure it out in the past before. Arsenal have not. But when you just look strictly on the quality of the squad, the quality of the management, and honestly the gameplay, I don't know what you're talking about with Arsenal not playing attractive ball, especially compared to you fucks. But
That's not what I said. I said
I
they
would
don't
put
play.
them.
They don't play.
That is
I
not a
said
good
they don't play
comparison.
to win games. They don't play to win games.
Put them somewhere in the top 3. It's going to be a title race till the very end, even if they don't end up winning it.
But Nick, if they get third, is that not a big disappointment for Arsenal, who was top of the league for weeks, the past 5 weeks, had this huge 2 dropped games against West Ham and Fulham, and last year dropped away from the title charge, being up by 5 points so late in the season? Is it not disappointing for Arsenal if they end up in third?
Listen, we unlike Man U, we are a real club. We do have ambition. We sign real players. But the of course, there's only one team happy at the end of the year, and it's the winner. And Arsenal's ambition is to win the league. It will be disappointing. I don't know about a 4th or 5th battle. I think we're comfortably going to be top 3. And I want to win. It would be a disappointment, but to lose to these 2 super teams isn't going to make me feel last year where we did bottle it. I was fucking incensed at the end of the year, 12-point
Who
lead
are
at
the 2
Christmas.
super teams you're talking about? Because I
Yeah,
Man
remember
City and
the
you
Liverpool.
can't call Liverpool a super
you
team.
talked about how shit Liverpool's midfield was and how Arsenal had such a better team, and now you're behind them and you're saying they're a super team.
When you look at the amount of investment that has gone into both of those squads, the investment has been far greater when it comes to
You have a
Liverpool and Man City.
$105 million center defensive mid. You can't talk about investment. If Arsenal is not winning a title, it should be a disappointment. And if you look at the other teams on the table, who's dropping and you're that disappointed? If Manchester United drop a bunch, I think, yes, they're more disappointed for not winning or getting the title. I think that would be an argument. Liverpool, I think you could make an argument if they don't win or they drop, that's a bigger disappointment since they are right now in the top and have been in such great form, haven't had any real bad spells. But who else would be more disappointed than Arsenal, who should be considered a title contender, was a title contender, and considered one throughout this entire time if you end up third place?
Oh, title contenders. I don't know. Well, maybe the guy whose dick you were sucking for the first half of the season, who was a title contender. Oh, look, he's in 5th, not doing anything. Maybe Ange Postecoglou is a guy that you can look at and say, oh, disappointing result. They were ahead for 3 weeks, guys. Oh, they should have.
Tottenham
They're a
Hotspur
point
and
off. They're
Arsenal
a
should have
point
the
off.
same expectation at this point as
I am
clubs.
saying I am saying that Nick Tracy is making a prediction that Arsenal will be the disappointment of the second half of the season. I am saying that they will not be the disappointment of the second half of the season. If they do not win the title, it will be disappointing. Team doesn't win the title. It is disappointing because you want to win the title, especially in the top 6. That does not mean that Arsenal are all of a sudden going to struggle to finish 5th in the Premier League as Nick Tracy predicted.
I'm saying they will be the disappointment of the season as a whole because Arsenal fans' expectations going into this season finished second last year. For a while, it looked like they would be in the title race, and then it kind of fell apart at the end. And then with the signings they made this past summer, they were expected to make a real run for it, and it looked like they might for a second. And if we're talking second half of the season, they've already played one game in the second half of the season. They lost it to Fulham, and that's put them in a way worse spot than they were in before that. So I think that them coming, even if they come in a far third place, which I don't see them competing for the title. As I'll say, maybe they can come in third place. I don't think they'll be in competition for the title with 3 games left to go. So I think that's a disappointing season for Arsenal, and especially with the expectations at the beginning of the season, or even just 2 weeks ago before these last two losses. I think people expected Arsenal to make a real run for the title 2 weeks ago, and now I don't see that happening, and I don't think they will uphold that form that
And
they
the
had
biggest
this season.
problem with your entire prediction is that you're basing it entirely on the past 2 weeks. Like, they played a
No,
shitty game, and they were unfortunate. Talk about investment in the squad, by the way. Did Josko Gvardiol not sign for 100 million for Man City? Did Dominic Szoboszlai
Nick,
not
we're
get
not
80
saying that
million
they're
for
not
Liverpool?
super teams.
McAllister
Where do you
another
spend
50
that
million? Like,
money?
all
It's
these
all big
teams are
money.
spending the same amount. I do not know what
It's
you're
all big
talking
money.
about.
I think
What was it,
I
Mike?
think you're basing it more on this last 2 weeks than I am, because you were saying that Arsenal's a real title contender, and now you're saying it's not a disappointment if they don't really compete for the title.
I'm saying
So
it
are
is
they a
a
real title
disappointment
contender or
if
not?
they don't win the league. Did I fucking stutter? Hello?
But Nick, I think, and Mike, I'll go to you since you haven't have been able to weigh on this. But if Arsenal finishes exactly where they're at right now, 20 weeks in, they're in fourth. Let's say they move up to third or fourth. Who's more disappointed than Arsenal fans if they finish third and fourth after going into the season? They would have thought them and Man City are the two title favorites. Like Nick said, Liverpool's rebuilding, and yes, they're overperforming. And Arsenal had the top of the table for weeks and weeks and weeks, was top two back and forth with Liverpool. If they end the season in third or fourth, is there a team that would be more disappointed?
No, I don't think so. Based on last season's expectations, Arsenal had it wrapped up. They were singing the songs. They were walking champions. They were hanging the banners. And then Man City stormed in and ripped them down and put them next to the fucking other million that they've won. So no, it would not be. There would be no more disappointment than Arsenal fans, Mikel Arteta, and the boys in this squad if they don't get it done. Especially with the signings they made this summer. They
Oh
made
my
the
god.
signings that they thought would get them over the line. We get Declan Rice. We shore up that midfield. That's what we need to beat the Man Cities. The Kai Havertz signing, it's a huge investment. I don't think it's all that great for your title chances, but it's $70 million that goes into your midfield. That is huge investment in the middle of the park. And it's comparable to every other team. If they finish where they are, or if they're in fourth or in third and go over Aston Villa, I would assume it'll be hugely disappointing because this is their season to make it. The only other chance they have, a successful season without winning the Premier League is if they have a miracle in the Champions League, which, you know, I don't like. I don't hate their chances there.
I I think Nick, I'll give you your final word on this. We do have a big segment coming up, so I want to make sure we don't take too much time on this. But Nick, I don't think it's about the other teams here. Obviously, Man City, 115 FIFA Fair Play protocol charges against them for the amount of money they spend. Liverpool invested in their midfield to rebuild it. That is all understood. Arsenal also, though, invested a lot of money, and I think you would admit that going into the season, you were saying maybe not title favorites, but certainly we're thinking 1-2 title was definitely on the card. So if it ends up not being on the cards, where you drop, I'm not saying if you're second and you've lost it by 3 points, that's the biggest disappointment. But if they get a fourth, if they get a third, it seems like they will have, rather than progress with these huge signings, regressed to a third, fourth place that you would categorize as a disappointment. And unless Man City finishes below them, I don't think there's a team that would have as high expectations not met as Arsenal. But I'll give you the final word here before we wrap.
Sure. Um, I said that we're title contenders last summer, coming into the season, and I'm saying it right now. I'm not saying that we're not title contenders. If they are 8 points off the title by the end of it, it is a disappointment of a season. Do I think it is the most disappointing thing that could happen in the Premier League? Well, I do not think it is, especially if they're finishing third or fourth. They're continuing to establish a Champions League. Let's not say it is a successful season. I'm saying it's not the biggest disappointment. As far again, the amount that these squads have been built, even if they are going through a revamp, specifically Liverpool in their midfield, the amount of overall investment, they should be further along in their project. So I don't think that us being third is the most disappointing thing of the season in a year where Chelsea spent £1 billion and are finishing mid-table. Manchester United can't seem to figure shit out. There's a lot of other things going on that I do think would be more disappointing. Does that mean that it's a success? No. Do I predict that Arsenal are going to finish more than 3, 4, maybe max points off of first? I don't think so. So I guess we'll see at the end of the year when Nick Tracy comes back with a purple eye.
All right, we will revisit it then. If you have thoughts on it, feel free to leave it in the comments. Let us know if you're on Nick's side, as in Nick Tracy's side, or if you are on Nico's side. But now we get into a pretty big segment that I am pretty excited for here. It is our Premier League starting 11s, our team of the season so far. There are some rules with this, and the rules are pretty simple. The three of us each picked, as in the three normal guests here, picked what we thought would be the strongest combined starting 11 in the league, with the only rule being you can't pick multiple players from the same team. So our guest, celebrity guest, Nick Tracy, is going to be picking which of our starting 11s that we have chosen is the best, and the winner will get an extra 2 points in our locks of the season competition. And we are going to start with Nico's lineup here. Producer P, if you can pull that up, we will get started. Nick, run us through your lineup.
All right, so here's what I went with. I hate my chances because Nick's clearly a hater. But objectively, I am the
This is
smartest person on this
directly after
podcast.
talking a lot of shit.
Objectively, I am the smartest person on this podcast, so I think you guys will side with me. We'll start with our goalkeeper. I'm choosing the villain himself, Emi Martinez, worthy of that name. I think recently didn't he win like the best keeper in the world? Aston Villa has a lot of quality, but none more so, I think, than the man between the sticks. So to be able to pick him up as my goalkeeper, I felt happy. Jedi Robinson, our first guy really outside of a top 10 team, has been playing phenomenal football. I feel like if I get a guy from Fulham here, it saves me some other players later on in the game. And honestly, left back really isn't that important of a, or sorry, not that deep of a position in the Premier League this year. This one could bring some hate. He is out injured, but I do think he is one of the most quality center backs in the league for Newcastle. I think they're missing him tremendously right now. Sven Botman on the left side is who I'm taking there. He's played very high level last year. Played well when
He just came back.
What's that?
He just came back last game.
Oh, perfect. Nice. So coming back soon. I like him a lot. He honestly reminds me of maybe a little less mistake-prone Gabriel from Arsenal. Although, to be fair, Gabriel has gotten much better when it comes to mistakes on the ball. On the other side of I'll go to the other center back in a second. I'm going Malo Gusto at right back from Chelsea. I just really like what I see from him. I don't think you can pick anyone else from Chelsea, but I do think he's a dynamic player. And again, picking a guy side of the top 10 is kind of slim picking. So my outside backs, I feel good about them specifically from the teams they come from. When it comes to center back and defensive mid, this one was hard for me to pick. I was going to go Man City and Arsenal for these two picks. I went with Ruben Diaz in the back and Declan Rice in the midfield. It could easily have been Saliba and Rodri. I think all four of those players are very comparable to each other. I think Declan Rice is having the best CDM performances of any other player in the world this year. So I went with him. Ruben Diaz is still a very quality player. In the midfield, the only guy worth a shit on that Man U squad, Bruno Fernandes. On the right side, Lucas Paqueta, a fantastic player with Mohamed Kudus and Jared Bowen balling. I don't think Paqueta's gotten enough credit, and he's a baller at West Ham. So I like Rice to anchor that midfield with those two guys who, honestly, Fernandes and Paqueta like run their ass off too. So I like that midfield. At left wing, again, I'm going with talent over form. He's played well, but maybe not the end result that he had last year. I'm going Matoma there. Oh God, he can turn any player in the world, and he does it pretty consistently. So I'm going Mitoma, and then I think the two players who are up there for maybe like player of the season so far this year. I'm going Heung-min Son down the middle. He's been a revelation at the number 9 for Tottenham. Fuck those people, but is what it is. He's a baller. He cries a lot. He's kind of a bitch, but he's very fucking good at soccer. I like him down the middle. And honestly the only pick for player of the season so far. Mohamed Salah, the king. He's added creativity. It feels like this year. End product obviously still there. So he's definitely the guy I want anchoring my team. Mohamed Salah at the right wing. Nick, thoughts?
Overall, I think it's a very solid team. Um, I think you got most of the locks that are needed. Solid right wing needs to be in the team. Definite right choice. I think Son needs to be in there. Rice, I like the defensive mid Rice choice. I think he has been one of the best players in the league this season, and he's definitely shown why he was worth the amount he was signed for. I like Malo Gusto at right back. Despite how Chelsea have been playing, he's definitely shown some flashes, especially as attacking. With Reece James out, I mean, he's a guy who can just fly up that wing. He's great on the ball, get some balls in the box, and get some options for Chelsea. So I like that choice. Jedi Robinson on the other side, I love that choice too. I think he's been one of the bright spots in Fulham. I'm kind of surprised you didn't change up the center backs a little bit. I like Botman. I think he's incredibly important for Newcastle, and that's shown while he's been gone. They've struggled without him. But I don't know if Diaz this season is the best choice for the other center back. I know you can only do one per team, but I think Saliba is up there. He's had a great season so far, but I don't hate that pick. Pick I have the most problem with in your team would be Matoma. I just think, I mean, Son is a left wing. He plays striker and left wing for Tottenham, but I feel like you could have put someone better at striker if you slid Son over to the left wing. Like Matoma's a great player, and he doesn't show on the stat sheet what he does, all the chances he creates, but I think maybe somebody who's been more informed this season, like Solanke or someone like that, could have slid into striker. But overall, I like the team quite a bit.
All right.
Sweet.
And Nick, whose 11 would you like to see next? Your brother's or mine?
Let's go for yours.
All right, perfect. Producer P, can you pull that one up? I was clicking here
Let
with
me make
this
sure
one.
that I pull up the right one. Okay,
All right.
cool.
I'm gonna start top down, starting with my attack.
He
This
We
says,
one's
start
so
with
much bigger.
the man himself, Erling Haaland. He is right now the highest scorer in the league. And the two that are joining him in attack are the other two joint top scorers of Salah and Heung-min Son. There is not a better attack that you could create than those three. Son and Salah are both really driving their teams to any of the results that they're getting. Salah obviously has a bit more support than Son, but has certainly been kind of that MVP type player. Haaland, although not breaking records, is still an absolutely absurd striker and is still scoring at a crazy rate. Even in a down season for him, he is leading the league in goals. And then in the midfield, I went to West Ham for my 10 and is Mohamed Kudus, who has been a huge reason why West Ham has been in their fine form recently. He is creating chances like crazy, scoring chances, and has been if you just watch West Ham, he is an absolute dynamo in their midfield, just spurring on a lot of their action, and a huge reason why I think they are good. Some money well spent from that Declan Rice money. I went with Bruno Fernandes because there's not really many other players you could go for in Manchester United, and he is having a pretty decent season. And then the man we talked about earlier so much and gave so much praise to, Douglas Luiz, centering that midfield. There are a lot of other six options, like a Declan Rice, I think is a great choice, Nick. But uh, Douglas Luiz, I think, allows you a little bit more flexibility for some better center backs. And obviously, having Holland up top, I think, is better than having just a Rodri in there when a Douglas Luiz is available. For right back, I went with Trippier because he has 7 assists this season. He is third in the assist numbers. He is going pretty crazy. Luckily, he did have his bad game against Everton and helped us out a bit. So the one blip in his radar was for us. So that boosted him up even more on my leaderboard. Saliba has been a rock for Arsenal. I think bordering on world class. So put him in there with our boy Tarkowski. He has been a huge reason why that defense is so stout over there. And I believe he's like number 1 in clearances and number 3 or 4 in interceptions. Uh, but that leads us over to our American Jedi Robinson, who went on a crazy streak of goal contributions, and he's has the most interceptions in the Premier League by like 20 something interceptions. So he is just absolutely crazy. Been hugely important for Fulham. And then in net, I went with Neto from Wolves. If you've watched any of his games, especially the one against Everton, he saves so many chances, I feel. And from the bottom half of the table, Wolves has the best goal differential of any team down there, and a big part is that due to Neto making a lot of quick reflex saves and keeping Wolves in a lot of games that has allowed them to have little spurs of form. But that
Wait,
is
what
my
team is
11.
Neto on? What team is Neto on, Jared?
Wolves? Is he not?
No, fucker. Jose Sa is Wolves keeper. Neto's at
Oh, wrong
Bournemouth,
Neto.
lad.
Yeah,
Wait, what
Neto's
team
at
is
Bournemouth.
Neto on?
So can we disqualify
Bournemouth.
it?
The
Right? I
Cherries.
feel like you
Whatever.
lose.
Anyways,
that's
Nick,
some
besides
that is some.
goalkeeper, what are your
I
thoughts?
was thinking that in my head. Okay. I can't just ignore that you put the keeper from the wrong team. But we'll move on, I guess. From that. Other than that, I like the lineup. I like the two center backs. That's a good pairing. As I mentioned before with Nick, I think Saliba's been damn near world class this season. He's been a great player, very solid. Shown that against some of the best players in the world when he comes up against them. Pocketed Holland when he played against them. Uh, Tarkowski, I like that pick. You got to represent Everton. Robinson and Trippier are great. I think it's hard to beat those as outside backs. Trippier is solid as he ever is. All that right wing is a lock. Holland at striker is hard to argue against. It would be cool to see some more creativity in that spot, but I can't really like argue against Holland up top. I think there's other players that could go in that spot based on the incredible form they've had. But 14 goals in 15 games is it's the resume that you need to be in a team of the season. Um, and I also like this midfield. I like the differences compared to Nick's team. They're both very solid, but I just like seeing different players. Kudus and Akata both have been very solid for West Ham, and I think they're a lot of the reason they've done so well. And as I was mentioning before, I think Douglas Luiz has been incredible at the six this year, so I definitely like that pick.
All right, let's get over to Mike's, and then we will have him choose which he thinks is the best.
I got the exact same back line as you, Jared.
Damn.
I'll start up top as well.
Oh, Nana? No fucking way.
Whoa.
That's the mids, bro.
We'll end with the best. We'll start up top.
Oh, way.
And we're starting with a man not in the top 10. We're talking big Dom Solanke. And we're lovers of Bournemouth on this pod. Some of us have a love-hate relationship. But Dom's, one of the major reasons that Bournemouth had this resurgence. He's got 11 goals. He's in that top 5 this year. He doesn't get nearly the amount of chances or creation from his supporting cast that some of the other strikers do in the league, but he's just so damn clinical, and he's having an absolute worldly of a season so far this year. So I threw him in there. Salah on the right, absolute lock. He does what he does. He scores the goals. He makes the assists. Incredible. And then Sonny Boy on the left side. What more can you say? He stepped up for Tottenham hugely this season. The goals are there. The creativity's there. When he's on, he's absolutely unplayable if you're an outside back. He's just so fast, such a dynamic dribbler. And then I threw a little West Ham boy up in the mix. Little out of position. Jared Bowen's more of a forward right winger, but I think he could play under Solanke. And he's having an outstanding season. Also on 11 goals, I believe. A few assists in there. And, he's keeping Mikel Antonio out of the team a lot of the time. And he's one of the reasons that West Ham started the year so hot. So I threw him in the mix. And then I do have a CDM pairing in the back. Jared was a little angsty about that, but it's Rodri and Luiz. And I thought about putting Dex in there. I wanted to put Dex, Luiz, and Rodri together, but I was like, that's a little crazy. We can't play a triple pivot. Rodri's a lock. In my opinion, he's still the best 6 in the world. He does everything you want. Fantastic passer of the ball, scores a goal, does it all. And Luiz has been the outstanding man for Villa this year, along with Ollie Watkins. Debated throwing Watkins in there. Ended up going with Luiz. We've said it several times on this podcast. Absolutely warrior in the midfield. Scored 6 goals this season. Really does it all, and is the reason Villa's that high up right now. Same backline as Jared. Jedi Robinson's been the best left back in the league, period, in my opinion, this season. There is a few, we're not having Andy Robertson and a few other guys who might usually take that spot. But Jedi's been great. Defensively, he's a rock. Athletically, he's amazing. And then he stepped it up going forward this year. A few goals and a few assists. Trippier on the other side. Aside from Trent Alexander-Arnold, probably the most gifted offensive right back in the league. On free kicks, playing balls in behind, does it all. Defensively, he's looked not as solid this year. I'll definitely say that. But still a good player. Saliba is right up there with the Van Dijks and Ruben Diaz in the league. He's one of the best to do it right now. Still only 22. I think he'll get better. Amazing. And then James Tarkowski, little love for the boys in blue. I think he's been our best player this season, Jared. You think so?
I'm just waiting for the next explanation, honestly, but I agree.
I almost put Ethan Pinnock from Brentford, but Tarkowski had to get it. And then
Nick's a good shout.
the controversial pick, Andre Onana. I picked the boy. Not maybe meeting expectations. He was a huge money signing, came from Inter, but most of his blunders and shit play has been in a different competition this year. It was in Europe. In the Premier League, he's done a satisfactory job. He's got the most clean sheets in the league. He's got one of the highest save percentages, and he's got one of the, best expected goals. He's expected to concede 3 more than he has. So, what can I say? They bought him to do a little bit more
giving the
possession.
fucking ball away.
Hey, he's my lock. This is my team of the year.
Like,
Andre
I think
Onana
it's
makes the
crazy
cut.
that you put a player in your team of the season so far that you describe his performance as, hey, he's been pretty shit, but actually, he's
No,
actually
no,
been
no,
he's been
no, no, no.
satisfactory. That
It's
was
I
your
gotta,
satisfactory.
yeah.
adjective to describe the goalkeeper of the season was satisfactory.
I've watched a lot of Man United games this season, and Andre Onana has been shocking a lot of times, but never really quite in the way I want him to be. So
Clean sheets,
the
baby.
stats show, yeah, Man United's always got so many clean sheets every season, and then they're in 8th. So I don't love the Onana pick, even with his save stats. Like, I think he's been a decent shot stopper in the Premier League. He hasn't made some of those crazy blunders like he did in the Champions League, but for a guy who is signed to be incredible with his feet for a keeper, who just kicks the ball out of bounds or straight to the other team 90% of the time. So it's not my favorite pick. Not too much to say about the back line that I didn't say with Jared. I think that's just all solid picks. Double pivot. I think you could have thrown a more creative midfield player in there. You got 2 6s and then Bowen, who's not a midfielder. So I would have liked to see someone like, it doesn't have to be Bruno Fernandes, but someone who plays the 8 or someone who plays the 10, at least one of them in your team. But obviously, Rodri and Luiz have both had great seasons. I just maybe
Rodri's
would have
wearing
liked to
number
see
8.
someone outside of a 6. Yeah, Douglas Luiz is wearing number 7. So Son Heung-min's playing the 6, I guess. But the front 4, I would call it, I guess you got Bowen's been incredible. He's definitely not a 10. He's a winger. But you could play a 4 up top, I guess. So Solanke, I like that choice a lot. He's definitely been great. One player I would have liked to see at striker from one of you guys is maybe Ollie Watkins. He's got 9 goals and 8 assists. 8 assists. He's tied for the most assists this season with Mohamed Salah. So I think he's been a great player. And then Salah and Son on the wings. Can't argue with that. Those guys have been in every team for a reason. They're 2 of the best players in the world and in the league. So overall, solid team. Stretch the rules a little bit. Onana in the goal might hurt you, but overall, I like it.
I will say, Really quickly before you vote, just to make my final case, I think you're 100% right. Watkins deserves a shout in my team. I'd probably son on the left of me come up there. This is the team I have. I'll stick with this team. Jared didn't get his goalie right. He literally said the wrong.
There's no goalies.
He literally said the wrong fucking team. Kieran
Jared's playing
Trippier
with
has
10
been
men.
shocking defensively. Shocking.
He's made some
defensively.
mistakes.
And you can't argue with the front three. I mean, no one's gonna blame you for pulling Holland there. Son and Saul are elite. I do think in a real game that midfield gets overrun a little bit. Luiz kind of needs an anchor near him. Kudush is more of a winger, but all three of them have had great years. And I mean, your brothers was fucking atrocious. So, feels like I might have this one in the bag despite our differences.
I don't think your attack comes anywhere close to mine. I also think my midfield is cooking. So, and the defense, St.
midfield-
Pierre has sucked. He has made a
That
few
midfield
errors.
is-
Yes, he
like,
is
Luiz
7
can't-
assists. He is second in the league in assists. Like that
For
is
sure.
crazy.
For sure. I like all three of those are good picks. I just think that actual midfield in real life doesn't work as well as you hope it would.
Yeah, my midfield would body that midfield all fucking day, dude.
I mean,
would be a forward and 2 center defensive mids.
Yeah, good luck getting by those boys. And
Mike, you have no horse in this race. Shut the fuck up.
hey, I got a horse on my left back and my right back and both wings. Those are fucking horses, baby. And you know what, dude? You got Neto in goal, so you can't be talking all that much. How many goals have Bournemouth conceded this year? And you didn't even know he was playing for Bournemouth. Who does Nick have in goal? Nick's got Emi Martinez. Emi Martinez doesn't play with his feet either.
Purposely put Onana. That is much worse. I mistake
like
the
stats,
name. You
baby.
purposely did it. You purposely
like-
put Onana in there.
I like goalkeepers that have stats. That's what I like.
All right, Nick, final
All right.
verdict. Which team you going with here?
Yeah, all your guys' teams definitely have their problems. I would say Jared's is the most glaring. And I don't love the lack of a midfield on Mike's. So Nick, set our differences aside, our arguments earlier. I think I'm gonna go with yours overall.
Let's
I'm not
fucking
loving
go.
Matoma. I'm definitely not loving Matoma at left wing, but I like your other picks.
Man has Malo Gusto
I'm
in the
happy
team.
with
He's a
that.
backup. He's a
He is
backup.
Malo Gusto.
We're talking this
Let's
season. What is
go.
Reshame's just played 2 fucking games, 3 games?
Sven Botman's
doesn't
played
play.
6 games. Sven Botman's played 6, dude.
Mike, you're mad. Nick Tracy out of boy. That's Nick's got to stick together in this
If
shit.
I had
I'll
put
take-
in Jose Sa and put the right name in, does my 11 win?
I'm gonna say Nick's win is more a sign of your guys' glaring mistakes than it is his being a great 11. But he's the
listen.
winner. Maybe if you have Jose Sa, it changes my decision. But you had Neto, who plays for Wolves, so
Listen,
I
you
kind
got to
of
know who you're playing.
disregarded you in my mind.
And there's one thing I know is these two morons are the dumbest fucking people on the planet.
Bro, I built it 30 minutes before the pod. I mistake the name. Sue me.
Dude, no, he meant the Wolves Neto.
No, I meant I meant Pedro Neto.
He just put him in goal.
We're playing a real possession-based keeper.
That could work.
Like 5'6".
Bro, it doesn't matter. We're
Yeah,
playing
it's good with his feet though.
Yeah.
We're playing at the back.
Damn it.
Sick. I'll take the points.
I still
Congrats,
think
Nick.
my team is better. Even with Neto from Bournemouth, I still think the team's better.
My team is bounds better than you guys. But, sometimes it just doesn't go that way.
You're so sad.
Like the fact that you constantly pick Onana is like a really
Yeah, it's
just
not great. Here's the thing. I was
Nana is better
talking
than
to Mike.
Neto.
I was talking to Mike a tiny minute about it before the pod. I was like, yeah, Onana's actually got decent stats if you look at him in the Prem. And Mike was riding on that, I think, hoping I got him some points with me. But that doesn't – if you actually watch him play, he fucking sucks. So.
All right. Well, that will be it. Nick had the best 11 off of default of me fucking up, and Mike, I don't know what to call it, but made switching choices. I will close it out with closing thoughts. Mike, what are your closing thoughts?
Good to have a guest on the pod. Hopefully first of many to come. Happy New Year. I can't wait for Premier League to come back. It's going to be a long 2 weeks.
All right, Nick, our champion. What are your final thoughts? Is it
Yeah,
Nico?
up the Arsenal as always. Pleasure having the younger Tracy, and Happy New Year, boys.
All right, and Nick, our guest star. What are your parting words? We'll see you again on the end of year review. It sounds like.
I just gotta say thanks for having me on, boys. This is a fun podcast. Good to have some heated debates, and I hope to be back at the end of the year to see where Arsenal finishes.
Yes,
He
we
doesn't even
will.
care about his own fucking team, bro.
You're gonna
It's
finish in the box,
ridiculous.
bro.
Oh, I mean,
Why
man,
would he?
our
Nick,
season,
why would he?
Our
our
season's
season's done. Our season's done.
Nick, his club is in the 6th division of the Danish league. It is not Manchester United.
Yeah.
They got promoted. That's all he's thinking of. But
Thanks.
until next Sunday, we will catch you then. Subscribe, like, comment if you like Nick as a guest star or if you think he should never be on again. Let us know. But until next time, peace.
Later.
Oh, Nana.